3rd, 2025 in council chambers. It is now 8:03 p.m. and I would ask that everyone please stand who can to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Madam City Clerk, can you confirm that we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum this evening. In council chambers, we have Councilmember Estev, Councilmember Rogers, Councilmember Wolfley, Councilmember Truesdale, Councilmember Ndebumadu, and Mayor Adams. And joining us virtually via Teams, we have Councilmember Brady.
Thank you so very much. At this time, I would like to take a moment for all of us to have a moment of silence. For all those that were lost in the recent plane crashes, that we make sure we remember them, not only here, but around the rest of the country. So if you could, please take a moment to remember them and to honor them. Thank you. I would also like at this time just to take a moment to say to our first responders how much we appreciate all that you do and your willingness to put yourself out there for others. So thank you for what you do on a daily basis. We appreciate you. At this time, I would like to open the floor to my colleagues for any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Hearing none, we will move forward to citizen participation. I would like to remind everyone that during citizen participation, there is a maximum of 5 minutes that you're able to speak. It is not a back and forth dialogue between the council. It's just an opportunity for you to speak without us commenting in any way on your comments. So at this time, thank you, Madam City Clerk. We will have Paul Nadleon. Did I get it right?
The handwriting's a little off.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
my name is Paul Nadler. I'm a 20-year resident of the city of Bowie.
And you
if
can lift the mic up a little bit so that you're comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you can't guess, I'm with Bowie cloth. And I'm here to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the establishment of the holding room that we have here at City Hall. This was a collaboration between the city and our 501c3 charity. Thanks to a generous donation by a retired a veterinarian, I should say, Pat Shima, we gave $104,000 to help modify and make those holding rooms accessible for the animals that animal control picks up. And it's really helped unite a lot of people with their pets. Dogs don't have to go directly to the county, which in the past, that's what normally would happen. They'd pick up a dog and drive down there, and pretty much most of the day was spent with that. Now the dogs and cats have a 5-day hold, so this gives an opportunity for citizens to claim their dogs. And it's being used just the way it was planned. Just last week, we have a new animal control officer, and citizens called. She picked up 2 dogs. They were reunited that day. She picked up another dog. Same thing, reunited that day. And she picked up a cat that within a few days was reunited. And it's really been a big boon. Some people don't want to drive down to Upper Marlboro or even think of that. And having this here, posting it on Facebook, Bowie Claw has a page, Animal Control has a page. They also post on Nextdoor, and it's really good in reuniting pets and their owners. So just wanted to, it's on the 7th, that's the 10th anniversary. So
Well, I will clap for it, 10 years.
And throughout this 10 years, I just wanted to thank the volunteers from Bowie Claw that help Animal Control over the weekends when they're not here. We walk the animals several times a day, make sure they're fed, and even like evenings and stuff like that. So it's been a very good partnership between the city and our organization. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Rhonda Billingson. And bear with me as I read the.
That's okay. That's fine.
the
You're
handout.
fine. You're fine, Mayor. My name is Rhonda Billingsley, and I've been a resident since 2005 in South Bowie. And over the years, I've noticed that economic development has not been a priority in the city of Bowie for quite some time. We've lost businesses in the last 10 years. And my concern has been right now, the question is, where is the economic development? I want to go over a couple of things because when I was here a couple of years ago, I had voiced my thoughts against the dashing gas stations that is about to take place of the Applebee's. We have about 8 to 10 gas stations within a 1 mile radius, which doesn't make sense to me. And I know the county council has just came out with a bill or whatever that limited the amount of gas stations and developments. I don't know what the name of that bill happens to be. But my concern is, what is the person who's in charge of economic development doing right now? I'm looking at the salaries, and the best that I could pull were salaries that went as far as 2022. Most of these people are making beyond the average, national average, and I'll pull just a couple here. The city manager, this is 2022, makes $236,000 a year, $235,000, this is 2022. The director of economic development makes $150,000, 2022. The city manager makes $188,000. The financial director makes $177,000. These were back in 2022. My concern is the salaries do not reflect what I'm seeing in this community right now. We have a movie theater that just closed. No one told us. A church bought the movie theater, and there's a homeless person now sleeping in the movie theater parking lot in a van. The police department can't do anything because now that the church owns the property, they don't want the person moved. That shouldn't have happened. Magic Johnson was just here in December of 2024. We had a movie theater. We had an opportunity to sell maybe the movie theater or talk to the owners and sell the movie theater to someone else or get them to do that. We don't have any restaurants, and I want to remind you that you're losing a lot of your residents. When many of the residents left, when they left the county and the city, there were several reasons. They asked me why were they planning to leave the city, or why did they leave the city? A couple of things: government accountability, the school system, and amenities. I lived in Columbia, Maryland for about 7 years, and I didn't live far from Meriwether Post Pavilion. Right now, if you go to Meriwether Post Pavilion, there has been a big development boom. We have the Bay Sox Stadium. There's nothing going on over there. We have the Naval Academy that comes here every year to watch the game. We have no restaurants over there. My question again, where's the economic development? You guys are elected officials. If the people who are in office making these high-end salaries can't bring the businesses in, it's time to purge some of these people out. That is the point. The taxes are high. We can't afford another tax increase because there's nothing here. When I look at my paycheck, and this is my day off, I came to speak today because I didn't want to miss this meeting because I'm going to be out of town at the country in the next couple of weeks. When I look at my paycheck, the taxes don't justify anything. So there has to be some changes made, and it needs to be made soon, or you're going to keep losing your residents. Thank you.
Next up, we have Maureen Fine.
Hi, Hi, I'm Maureen Fine, 2509 Night Hill Lane, and I am a 38-year resident of Bowie. So I am here, if you haven't figured it out yet, in support of the bottle bill. I was at the Environmental Legislative 2025 Summit last week in Annapolis, and Governor Moore, who's the only governor in Maryland history who has actually attended that event, there was a lot of enthusiasm for a bottle bill, a lot. There were a lot of these blue shirts around, and 90%, a recent study showed that 90% of Marylanders support a bottle bill. There are 10 states that already have longstanding, very effective programs, and they recover 90% of their bottles. So I think that's pretty impressive. DC just passed a bottle bill, and Mount Rainier, College Park, Greenbelt, and Bladensburg have written letters of support in the past for a bottle bill. So that's why I'm here to ask for, I think it would be so fabulous if the Bowie City Council could support that bill. We have a lot of residents of Bowie who I think are very much in support of it. However, the hearings are coming up soon. I think the House hearing is next week, so I don't know how all of that works. You've done it before, so you know more about it than I do. But please support the bottle bill and back it up with a letter. That we would greatly appreciate it. And our water quality and our bodies, I just read an article yesterday, our brains have microplastic particles in them. So we got to do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Charlene Biesto.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, city residents. Good evening, Boy Scouts and soon-to-be Eagle Scouts. First item I'd like to discuss is I just want to let you know I'm a over 20-year resident of the city of Bowie, and I raised both my children in Bowie with scouting. I wanted to tell you, scouting has done many things for the city of Bowie, including cleaning out the stream cleanups over the 20-year plus years. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts have done that spring cleanup over 20 years in the city of Bowie. I wanted to let you know that girls don't need to be International Day for that month. White Her Story matters, and it matters in February. If you did read the actual biography of Harriet Tubman, you would know that she wanted a sewing school, but they made her biography about carrying a gun. See? A peace gun. A right peace gun, a left peace gun. If I aim it at you, am I giving it a threat or am I holding it to the ceiling? A sincerity of effect is why I come to you tonight. I see that we want to talk about inclusion, but we don't like using language arts that's not politically correct. We don't say gay, we don't say the fa with the two GG names. We use polite names and we then play alphabet agency. Please do not let your brains and your mouths be guided by leading to nowhere. I ask you to consider that in Maryland, in your very own budget, that I went to the hearing that you approved by block conversations. You have these great men who give their life to go to training, to learn how to take care of their weapon, and have to do the protocol with precision and with care and with diligence. I worked for 27 officers, and I was their payroll assistant. I know what has to be done to follow the rules of gun safety and SPO for not only the state, but the federal requirements. I worked on Constitution Avenue, so I know a little bit about gun protocol. You don't get to work on Constitution Avenue unless you're invited to do so. I would like you to recognize that in the state of Maryland, we are being used as a proxy war. I want us all to be aware, alert, and look for guerrilla warfare. I want us to all start to push back with our hearts and our minds, not with guns and not with knives. in our writing, in our actual digital footprint, in our conversations. We do not agree in heart, spirit, to having an opium den on Stony Brook or 24 hours setting precedent for a history of drug use. The two phantom snakes are now actually on a vape poll, and this matters because drugs equals drugs, and we know those comorbidities. People are not statistics. We have the Pharaoh snakes, and we are being used for holy war, and we must show, see, say, and tell why. The Bottle Institute of what you're trying to do is great, but if we don't have the ability to capture that money and say, we want to put it back into the commons, we need a bill that says, no, this is not for budgetary grab and go. Where can we teach and make it do something environmental stewardship? Where is the open source commons room at Free State Mall where kids with autism and the community, a calming space, come make stuff out of recyclables? If you had gone to the Boston Museum, did you know they have a room there that takes recyclables and it's like a shop? And you take recyclables, you can have bubble wrap, you can have a whole compendium of materials for art supplies. So that money needs to directly be pushed back into the whole system. I know I'm over 5 minutes, so I'm just gonna make 3 points real quick. I have a water quality degree, environmental science degree, and I went to the University of the District of Columbia. I did not have Equal Rights Amendment. No one said White Her Story Month matters. I made $11 an hour working for the city. When the city had to put its budget together in circa year 2010, I did work for the city. I did write portions of the language arts as it pertains to vehicle purchase, and I had to do the research of comps for city actual government vehicles and why we should sell them within a 10-year time to capture the derivative differential between depreciation. So although I may look like a mess, my son was valedictorian, and we've been targeted for many purposes, and psyoping and teaching and surveillance. You might want to know that autism is really high in Maryland, and if you went to the church at Sacred Heart, you would see the 3 boys of one mother. They attacked 3 of her sons. If you'd gone to the Jewish church in Columbia and did Torah and kept Shabbat, Sabbath, you would know that the mothers are taking care of their only son, given autism. They are using Maryland
Excuse
for
me.
medical war.
If you
Fight
could,
against
please
it.
wrap it up.
Okay,
Thank
the
you.
next topic will be the water quality aeration because of a water quality degree. I'm on the next list.
Thank you. All right, I believe that's it for the citizen participation. At this time, we will move on to a presentation where we will have the swearing in of the new police officers and the promotion of Lieutenant Robert Stevenson to captain. So would you please come forward? Where's my swearing in? You see me? They can do it right there. I am looking for my swearing in sheet that's disappeared. I'm just going to put my sheet first, my cheat sheet.
Okay.
Yeah, I pretty much know it. It's always up there. I don't know where it's at. I'm just doing, there it is. Thank you, that's one. Thank you. And I will swear in on one. Officers, could you please raise your right hand? Council members, you see? No, we'll just do it from here. And then we will go down. I state your name.
I, Richard J. Bird,
Do swear or affirm
do swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland,
to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of
execute the office of police officer. Bowie Police Department.
according to the Constitution
According to the Constitution
and the laws of this state.
and the laws of this state.
Congratulations, sir. Gentlemen, we're gonna go down pictures after the chief. The chief is gonna do the promotion. He's gonna do the promotion. I'm gonna go.
Good evening, all.
Good evening, Chief.
Appreciate the opportunity to come before you this evening, not only for the swearing in of our new officers, but also I have the privilege this evening of celebrating the promotion of formerly Lieutenant Robert Stevenson to the rank of captain. He has been with the police department. I joined the police department here in 2012, and he's been with the police department since 2007, and he's been an absolute asset to the police department. So I want to read the certificate of promotion and then have him come forward. And it reads, "To all here present, greetings. Be it known that due to the special trust and confidence in the dedication and abilities of Robert Stevenson, I do promote to the rank of captain for the City of Bowie Police Department on this 29th day of December 2024. This appointment will therefore carefully and diligently discharge the duties of the grade in which appointed by doing and performing all manner of things thereunto pertaining. And I do strictly charge and require all personnel of lesser grade to render obedience, to obey orders. That this appointee is to observe and follow such orders and directions as may be given from time to time by superiors acting according to the rules and articles governing the discipline of the City of Bowie Police Department." Captain Stevenson.
Let's head down. Head down for the picture. Do we need to go further down by the flags or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And if we could, before we. Congratulations as well. Everybody looking straight. There you go. Could we have the sworn officers come join us? And I'd like to make sure, Officer Jackson? Yes, sir. This is where we go. This is you. Yeah, close enough. I mean, officer. Open it up so you can have it open. And you back. Everybody ready? Thank you. And then you get a chance to shake your hands. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
For a while, but military.
You can do it right on top. Give us the sign. You want to tell it?
Oh, that was yours? Yeah. That's fancy. That's very fancy. It's an awesome, yes, right?
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Everybody right this way, please.
Okay, thank you again. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service. We will skip item B and we will move on to item C, adoption and presentation of Proclamation P425 honoring Bowie resident and recently retired president and CEO of the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation, David Iannucci. Mr. Iannucci, would you come forward, please?
And Mayor, can we just get a motion to adopt the proclamation?
What's that?
Mr. Mayor,
Quick
I'd like to
motion
move
to
for,
adopt the proclamation.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the proclamation P425.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. Those in favor? Hearing none, the motion carries. Mr. Iannucci, the City of Bowie, Maryland, a proclamation of the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, honoring Bowie resident and recently retired president and CEO of the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation, David Iannucci. Whereas David Iannucci, a valued resident of Bowie, Maryland, has made extraordinary contributions to the growth and economic development of Prince George's County through his leadership as president and CEO of Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation. And whereas under his visionary leadership, the county achieved remarkable growth in business development, job creation, and infrastructure investment, strengthening the economic foundation of our region. And whereas Mr. Iannucci's dedication to innovation, strategic growth, and community partnerships has positively impacted the county with lasting benefits to the residents of Bowie and beyond. And whereas he concludes his tenure with the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation, his legacy of fostering economic prosperity will continue to inspire future generations of leaders and residents within the community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, hereby extends its sincere gratitude to David Iannucci for his outstanding leadership and dedication to the economic success and vitality of Prince George's County. We wish him all the best in his retirement and future endeavors. Adopted and presented by the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland on February 3rd, 2025. Signed, Timothy J. Adams, Mayor. Mr. Iannucci, congratulations and thank you for all you've done. Here you go.
Thank you.
Please come forward. Come on down. No,
You want to go down here?
well, want us to come, we'll go down. I was trying to get y'all to come here so we could shake your hand. Presentation.
We're coming to you.
Great career, great career. Wasn't paid $11 an hour with a college degree. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I made $11 an hour in 2010. Wasn't that great? Working for the Parks Department with a college degree, an environmental science degree, and a water quality degree.
Excuse me, at this time, I would request that there's quiet in the chambers.
I'm congratulating him. It's so exciting. He had a
Thank you.
great career.
But we need to move
How are
on.
the women doing? And the ladies.
At this time, the city boards and committees. First, I would like to take the opportunity as our diversity committee and others couldn't be here, but wanted to have a couple of proclamations read. And I think the first we will do is the DEI, Councilwoman Rogers. Do we need to do anything with these since they were going to be for the?
Those could just get adopted through they're on the consent agenda. So
Okay. So we can just read
That'll
them.
just be, right.
If there's
just
no,
do the
if there's
reading.
no problem with the rest of the committee, the council,
Unless you want to do the consent agenda first and then make, doesn't matter.
what's that?
That's fine.
What would you like to do?
No, I was just saying unless you wanted to approve them all and then it doesn't matter. Either way works.
Okay. All right. Why don't you go ahead with that proclamation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Proclamation of the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, affirming the city's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Whereas the City of Bowie recognizes and values the rich, diverse tapestry of our community, which is strengthened by the varied cultural backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences of our residents. And whereas diversity, equity, and inclusion are fundamental principles that foster a welcoming and prosperous environment for all individuals, regardless of race, ethnicity, nationality, gender, age, ability, religion, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status. And whereas the City of Bowie acknowledges the importance of creating an inclusive community where all individuals feel respected, heard, and empowered to contribute to the social and economic fabric of our city. And whereas the City of Bowie remains steadfast in its commitment to upholding the values of fairness, opportunity, and equality for all who live, work, and visit our city. And whereas the City of Bowie will continue to advance policies, programs, and initiatives that support diversity, equity, and inclusion in all aspects of our local government, public services, and community engagement. And whereas the City of Bowie is committed to excellence in public service and will continue to hire the most qualified and highly competent employees to best serve the needs of our community with professionalism, efficiency, and integrity. And whereas the residents of Bowie stand united in their desire to celebrate and embrace the diversity that makes our city a vibrant and thriving place to call home. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, hereby affirms its unwavering commitment to being an inclusive and welcoming community, ensuring that all individuals have equal opportunities to participate fully in the civic, cultural, and economic life of our city, and that the City of Bowie will continue to celebrate the contributions of all its residents and work collaboratively to promote equity, inclusion, and justice within our community. Introduced and passed by the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, at a regular meeting on February 3rd, 2025, attested by Awilda Hernandez, City Clerk, and Timothy J. Adams, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. At this time, I will read another proclamation, whereas the committee couldn't show up and asked that it be read. And it's the proclamation of the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, recognizing February 25th, 2025 as Black History Month in the City of Bowie. Whereas in 1926, Carter G. Woodson, the child of slave parents, established Negro History Week to celebrate and study the accomplishments of Black Americans. And whereas this event evolved into Black History Month in the United States, a month-long recognition each February. And whereas Black History Month is a time to recognize, honor, and celebrate the contributions and achievements of Black Americans throughout history. And whereas the City of Bowie acknowledges the importance of honoring the rich heritage, resilience, and enduring contributions of Black Americans in all fields, including science, politics, business, art, education, and social justice. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland hereby recognizes February 2025 as Black History Month in the City of Bowie, introduced and passed by the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland at a regular meeting on February 3rd, 2025. We will now move on to the appointments and reappointments and swearing in. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to do this at the time?
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Destiny Parker was interviewed on January 21, 2025 for an appointment to the Community Outreach Committee. With council concurrent, I'd like to move to appoint Ms. Destiny Parker to the Community Outreach Committee.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Aye.
Hearing none, the motion carries. Congratulations. Come on up. There you go. They're going to join you in the middle. Everybody, just come on. Come on.
Right here, face us, and
And here you go. Congratulations.
Mayor,
And this is,
you need to do the swearing in, the oath.
okay, that was a good test, and you caught it. Thank you. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Destiny Parker,
Do swear or affirm
do affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of, and state your committee,
execute the office of regular member of the Community Outreach Committee
according to the Constitution
according to the Constitution
and laws of the state.
and laws of this state.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you. Sorry.
Here you go. One more time, thank you. Here you go. All righty. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We will now move on to council announcements. I will open the floor to any council members who have any announcements at this time. Councilwoman Ndamamadu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. First, I do want to start off by saying good evening to my colleagues and also good evening to all of the beautiful and wonderful residents in the city of Bowie, especially District 4. A few announcements. First one was over the weekend, I made contact with State Highway Erica, who represents our community management forum, basically to discuss the trash on 301 that you can find alongside the District 4 corridor. It's really, really disgusting and it looks horrible. So I've been in touch with Erica and she has assured that a crew will be out there hopefully this week to make sure that they address the trash on 301 because it's very bad. The second announcement is there were also some complaints of trash around CVS off of Crane Highway. I did myself drive by there over the weekend and saw the trash was overflowing and there was trash all over the floor. So I did connect with our code enforcement department to notify them and spoke to Director Nick Spurgeon, who will work with me in addressing that. So just want to assure residents that those concerns have been heard. And then the last update is, as a lot of you know, we have discussed about Tesla being interested in coming into the city of Bowie. They were here about a week ago and did a site visit and visited a parcel off of the 301 corridor that sits alongside District 3 and District 4. Those conversations and progressions are advancing and are in the final stages. So hopefully very soon here we'll be welcoming Tesla to the city of Bowie. And I think those are my announcements. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Truesdale?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to second the proclamation of February Black History Month and honor all the men and women and even boys and girls that sacrifice their time and their lives, and in some cases to honor not only this month but every day of the year. So I just wanted to honor the Black History Month of February.
Thank you. Any other comments? Council members? Hearing none at this time, we will move on to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and residents, especially the folks on Kingsfield Drive. Three things I'd like to point out tonight. One, Mr. Iannucci lives in Northridge, which is the best neighborhood in town, for the record. And he is my neighbor. Secondly, to get on the bandwagon for Black History, for the record, both my grandfathers, who were born in 1895, served in America's Army in the World War I. My grandfather, George Lott, was in the 92nd Infantry Division, which is called the Buffalo Division, for those who know about the Buffalo Soldiers. Mr. Alfred Davis, my namesake, was a grade registration person cleaning up the battlefield. So just to keep it in the spirit of Black history. Okay. Also, I'd like to introduce a new department director. I've gotten to hire a few of them lately. Richard Hall is the new planning and sustainability director. Hired him, he started on the 27th, I believe. He's been with Park and Planning in the state of Maryland, and he's a very experienced at the job, and he beat out the other guy going without competition. And he's fitting in just fine. And I'd encourage you all to meet him and talk to him after the meeting, get to know him, because as you know, we really lean on our planning directors to help us get through this development thing. All right, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
I would like to say welcome.
That's all I got to say, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Manager. At this time, we will move to the consent agenda. I will open the floor for...
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second?
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, in favor?
Nay.
Having the ayes, what was the number again there?
6-1.
The motion carries. Thank you. We will now move on to old business.
I think if it's a consent agenda item, it doesn't pass, so we got to go back and it's 100%. It's either all or nothing.
I assume.
Yeah. So we've got to go through each item.
We could have it pulled. At this time, actually, it doesn't pass since it wasn't approved 100% for the consent agenda. The item, is there a particular item that can be pulled from that to let the consent agenda be approved as is? There's not one you'd like to pull out?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Whose vote wasn't recorded favorably?
Oh, that was Councilwoman Andabamadu.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure my vote was recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm not going to pull over it. It's too much.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Councilwoman Mamadu?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, under this consent agenda, there are just a few items that I have paused when it comes to supporting. In a couple of them, it's being suggested to waive competitive bidding requirements. And in the past, when we've had certain discussions around certain things, there's been a lot of animosity and controversy around passing things through without bidding requirements and waiving those requirements. So that's not something that I'm prepared to support at this time. I'm also not prepared to support under consent agenda the passing of a proposal for $145,000. So those are 3 items I'm just not prepared to support at this time. So with that being said, you can go forward with the motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Abstentions?
Aye.
Okay. Then the motion carries. Is that correct, Madam City Attorney?
I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to the old business adoption of ordinance 0125, repealing in its entirety the reenacting with amendments, Chapter 26 zoning, Article 2, municipal zoning authority of the Code of the City of Bowie to reflect changes required due to the Prince George's County zoning ordinance rewrite and CB 015-224, the zoning ordinance of Prince George's County. I will turn it over to staff.
Your new Director of Planning is going to address that for you.
Baptism by fire. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is my beginning of my 2nd week. So, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, just for a record, my name is Richard Hall. I'm Director of Planning and Sustainability. What you have before you tonight is an ordinance that essentially is the vehicle by which the city will adopt in the county zoning code, the new county zoning code. I believe, as many are aware, the county has gone through several ordinances over the last several years to update their zoning code, and therefore, given the nature of the city's planning authority, planning and zoning authority, and how it mostly relies on the counties, we need to make our ordinance updated to reflect the changes at the county level. I would submit to you that from a land use policy perspective, the changes are not significant. There are important changes. A lot of them are clarifications on a number of provisions in the zoning ordinance. There are a couple components that are unique to the city. One has to do with how variances are granted and the ability of the city to create a variance review board that would be a subset of the advisory planning board. The other component is to enable the city to have flexibility in fences and walls or height and some other components of the design of fences and walls for security purposes. It enables the planning director to give some flexibility there as well. If the City Council approves this ordinance, then it goes to County Council for their adoption before it can become effective.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Do we have any?
No, Mayor, we don't have anyone signed up, and no comments were received via email.
Okay, at this time, I'm closing the public hearing, and we'll open the council if there are any questions. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for adoption of ordinance 0-1-25.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. We will now move on to adoption of ordinance 0225, amending the adopted budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024. As embodied in the ordinance, I would at this time turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. H. Byron Matthews, Finance Director for the City of Bowie. Mayor and Council, you have a document before you, the supplemental ordinance 0225. It is a proposed ordinance to approve supplemental funding for several projects listed in the memo dated January 21st, 2025. As you know, some items often will have to be appropriated due to their lack of inclusion in the current budget due to unforeseen items or contracts that appear or materialize to be more than we actually programmed in the budget. The first item is the solid waste request. As you are aware, per your direction, we included $185,000 in the supplemental to handle the various condominium bulk trash pickup. The number 2 item is the replacement of vehicle 216, which was damaged by fire. The cost of that is $389,000. As you know, we have a reserve for replacement of our vehicles. However, this vehicle was pretty new, so we had an insurance claim that was filed for this vehicle, which we received $216,106. The additional amount being asked for is $313,100 to appropriate so that we could purchase this vehicle. The next item, Council, is $590,000 for resurfacing and road repair. This will allow us to absorb this spending due to some delays from last year. So the total impact on the fund balance is $1,088,100. Netted with the insurance recovery, the net effect will be $871,994. The next item is purchasing their pole building for community service. The price was $83,200. This cost was over budget by $8,200. So we're asking for an additional $8,200 for that item. Our next item is the construction of the driving range at the golf course. The original budget was $5.4 million. We need an additional $143,000 to award the contract and pay the outstanding permit fees for the golf course. The next item deals with our water and sewer division. For $41,500 request for the design of the low lift pump. And our last item is the filter replacement that exceeded the budget amount by $286,000. Staff is requesting that, and based on your approval, staff could carry out the duties necessary. And we request that you approve this supplemental budget ordinance. Thank you, Council Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing.
Mayor, we don't have anyone signed up, and there's no comments were received via email.
At this time, I will close the public hearing. We'll open it up for questions. One of the questions I have, just in general, Mr. Matthews, is, are any of these costs that we can push off until the next fiscal year?
Excuse me, Mayor. Thank you for the question. No, sir. I would say, in my professional opinion, staff has done everything it can in order to not bring this proposal to you. So what we are asking is definitely what we need to accomplish our task in 2025.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilwoman Ndamadu?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Matthews. I guess I'm not really sure that I understand. Can you please just break down a little bit more the sense of urgency around this? Like, I understand needing to accomplish tasks in 2025. However, the budget cycle is 3 months away. And so I'm trying to understand the sense of urgency around why this needs to be approved at this timing in this moment.
Thank you for your question, Councilwoman Debbie Matu. These items are very important. Staff can weigh in on any of these items, but from the finance point of view, staff has illustrated that most of these items were contracts that were already in our budget. The prices just happened to come in a little higher than we budgeted. When we go out to budget for an item, we use engineering studies from our public works contract officers. They provide us with the best numbers in the marketplace at the time that we develop the budget. There are other items included in this, such as item vehicle number 216 was totally unforeseen, and right now staff is without a street sweeper. So that task is not being completed right now.
Let me jump in there, Byron. All of the items, City Council, all the items here are assignments you gave us in last year's budget. And there are a couple extra. The bulk trash 185 is, we all had a discussion about that. And so in order for us to award the contract, we have to have the money appropriated, otherwise we can't sign it. So in other cases, we were, even though we did a pretty good job of engineering, we thought some of the costs, the bids, was what Byron was saying, came in high. So, but it's my opinion and my understanding that you all still want to do these things, and this is what it will cost to do it, and we have the money to do it, and we're prepared to execute it if you want to approve these amendments. If you want to pull something out, then we'll set that project aside. But it's my understanding that from my direction earlier, that all these are essential missions that should be done in 2025. If we do it in 2026, there'll be another appropriation, and but we can do that too.
At this time, Councilwoman, is there any other comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll go back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's helpful context. If you can speak to the other items, I understand the urgency around the street sweeper because we don't have one right now, so that makes sense. But I'm still kind of grappling with the context on the urgency for the other ones, besides that they were priority areas for 2025. Is there additional context that you can add to the urgency around the other items?
Well, there's no other we simply have to pave the roads. I mean, that is a basic function of the city, and we need the additional 590 so we can get that done. Because last year we had some contractual problems, and the weather slowed us down, and we're trying to catch up with that. So that's an absolute requirement. That's as essential as picking up the trash. The driving range is a part of the renovations that the council assigned related to the golf course. So in order to sign that contract, we need more money, $143 $1,000 more, or that CIP project can't go forward. And understand that just so any projects we push off till next fiscal year, it's going to cost us more to do them if you all still want to do them. So these are projects you've already assigned. We had some adjustments, all except the bulk trash, which is a new thing. And so there's, but if the council doesn't want to do them, let me know. We'll pull them off. And we'll set it aside and maybe next year. But from my perspective, they're all essential to accomplish the mission assigned to me in the 2025 budget.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. City Manager. That's the additional context that I needed on behalf of District 4 to justify my support. Thank you.
Well, City Manager, and to those looking, we do know that as a council, we have the authority to pull anything off of the budget. So there was no concern on my part from that standpoint, just making sure that we had these things addressed and made sure that when I asked to see what might be, if there were others, and I thought the answer from you know what?
Mr. Mayor.
I was about to call him Byron. I'm trying to be Mr. Matthews. Mr. Matthews gave for me was again my apologies by referring to you as your first name. All right, having that
Mr. Mayor.
brought forth, we are eligible for action.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
If you'd like, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 0-2-25, amending the adopted budget.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Anyone have any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor. Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. We will now move on to the new business, the Old Town Bowie revitalization update. Because of the time we're having, it'll be a good 30-second. No, I'm kidding.
I knew we were running long, Mr. Mayor and Council, but I will try to keep them short. You all have the slides. It's going to be mail available, but good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, staff. My name is Mark Lawrence. I'm the president of Incubate Community Development Partners, the city's contracted CDC to help with the revitalization of Old Town Bowie. So we've been on the project over 6 months. I have to say this is one of the best commutes I've had for all the work I've done, given that I live in Bowie proper. But I'm excited about the opportunity. I wanted to give you all an update and just show you the path forward. Hopefully I get these arrows right. So you all know me, but a little bit more about Incubate. We lead with entrepreneurship and community. So we take entrepreneurship as a community development tool. My background, I've been in management consulting. I've been a serial entrepreneur in tech. I've been more of a social entrepreneur, but I've been taking my talents around entrepreneurship because I can see how it can transform lives and give you creative approaches to economic development. So we lead with community, we focus on place, and we also like to have some of your traditional tech ventures. So with that, we looked at Old Town Bowie as a great canvas to achieve that. It has historic charm, it has a future, but it needed some things. So what I'm gonna walk through now is just a little update. So again, we all know the story about Old Town Bowie. I'm not coming into this new. I live in Bowie proper, but City of Bowie has adopted me. But I know that there's a historic past, railroad town, antique shops. We want to give something for the future. So when we looked at our scope of work, what we were contracted to do was a couple of things. Assessment and planning, right? There's a lot of information already available about what needs to happen, what's going on in Old Town Bowie. So we looked at that quickly. We looked at the 5-year revitalization plan that was given to us from Downtown Strategies. And we wanted really to start to engage the community. So they were engaged for, but bring them along in the process. Because from our work that we've seen outside the region, it can start with a simple idea, The answers are in the community. You have entrepreneurial talent in the community. We just need to figure out how to vet that out, give them the instructions, and activate them. Vision and fundraising. So I just heard the conversation about the budget. Revitalization costs money. So part of our work is to come up with that fundraising plan, to look at other sources that you haven't tapped to help fund that, public and private sector. Marketing communications. What's the story? What's the story about, Old Town Bowie? How do we get that out to the world? And how do we keep what's in place without disrupting? So we've done that a couple ways, right? So our approach to doing this really is around gathering inputs from residents and local businesses, and I'll give you some input from a survey in a second. Partnership building. So just to tease you, I think small-scale manufacturing, craft manufacturing, art is perfect for Old Town Bowie. So how do we get those type of people out? How do we understand what they need? And how do we build the infrastructure to support that? That goes to zoning infrastructure. And then marketing and branding, creating that sense of place, identity that's unique, and making sure that we advertise that to the world. So again, leverage the past work. I won't go through there, but I will mention one thing. A lot of the work that we looked at, the analog or the example they said was Kensington, Maryland. While that was a great model, there are other models that we've seen in our work for old railroad towns that we wanted to incorporate. So we looked at 4. Asheville always comes up, barring the floods. It was a real good river arts community. I think there's some models there. Another place where I've actually been, Staunton, Virginia, which is a railroad town, old railroad town, a lot of craft manufacturing, a lot of breweries. I think that has some ideas that we can take and we can leverage as well. And then historic Main Street and Grapevine Testics, which is a wine town and community with a lot of the arts. So taking the data, what we know, we've come up with a vision for Old Town Bowie. And really what we said is that key fundamentals of our vision, historic preservation, right? We want to keep the history there. We want to tell the stories. Cultural and event programming. Old Town Bowie still is known for events, right? We want to bring that back to the world. The challenge and what we're dealing with now is really local business growth, right? Because again, to activate the community, that's why we're focused on entrepreneurs. We want folks that will take that leap, they will invest in that community, and they will be there rather than traditional attraction. Nothing is wrong with that, but we feel that for local business growth, we got to tap into the community. And then creating some sense of tourism and integration. So our vision, we've been on the project over 6 months. We looked at all the data. We talked to the residents, talked to some of our colleagues that does this work around the country. And we really believe that Old Town Bowie has the infrastructure, the bones, and the culture for what we call small-scale craft manufacturing and art spaces. And what is that? Handmade goods, right? People making stuff with their hands, candles, crafts, bracelets, jewelry, all the way to woodwork, all the way to high-tech and emerging stuff as well. It's built locally. So in order to activate the community, yes, we could go the traditional retail route, but to get the walking traffic, we need folks that have things that they scale and they export until the retail and the walkability comes back. And then what it does, it creates local jobs, right? It creates jobs, it creates opportunity. Whether you're at the community college, we're at Bowie State, we're at the Bowie High School, you can get your first job working with these small-scale manufacturers. And like I said, we talked about some of the communities that have benefited, which we looked at, and I've actually visited all 3 of those, done work in 2 of them, but I do see similar opportunities here in Old Town Bowie. Again, we talked about the arts scene. So manufacturing is one side, but we want to tell the story of Old Town Bowie, lively arts community. We want to make sure that we have that and we can attract visitors to those unique experiences. I recently had the opportunity of attending the Old Town Bowie Celebrates after not attending for a year, and I feel that it's back. COVID put us back for a while, but to see the activity in the streets during that day was amazing, and I think we're on the trajectory to keep going. And then benefits to broader Bowie, that's typical economic development stuff, so we'll go there. But let's talk about what we've been focused on, and this is really the core of what I want to talk about before I talk about the survey. So what will it take? Really, it's going to talk about, a lot of infrastructure investment, investing in the old buildings there, revitalizing them, giving them a new purpose. Identity, this idea of a craft manufacturing arts district. My traditional passion, arts and incubators, right? So how do we get co-working, contract manufacturing, collaborative spaces, innovative spaces for entrepreneurs to work at? We talked about commercial kitchens. We talked about doing things for textiles, but also incentives. How do you incentivize entrepreneurs to locate there? And then obviously we can't do it by ourselves with partnerships, and then also enhancing the annual Maker Fair. So some success. So now that we have the vision, we've talked to a couple of folks around the state. We're currently got some money from TEDCO as part of the Maryland Makerspace Initiative, which is part of Maryland's Manufacturing 4.0 initiative. And the pitch there was, imagine the art of the possible of Old Town Bowie becoming a maker community. Multiple maker spaces doing different things, but all co-located in one area. What would that do? So we're currently halfway through that. That study will be done in April. And we're going to use that to, when we convene the steering committee, I believe in being data-driven, and the latest opportunity, we're going to make some decisions. From an arts perspective, we've been working with the Arts and Humanities Council and the Planning Department to not only do murals, but do, Eye to the Future, interactive AR murals, where you're using technology along the paint to tell the story so that you create that destination. And the last piece we're working on is with Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. Old Town Bowie is a sustainable community and is eligible for multiple state revitalization programs. We just need to keep in communication and get the resources we need to achieve the vision. So with that, I'll talk about where we are. So again, bridging the past, bringing the future, incorporating entrepreneurship, bringing arts and manufacturing. It's been over 6 months. I feel that we are on, if not ahead of progress, and I'm excited to continue this work and deliver it for the city of Bowie. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, anyone right now at this time for Councilman Estelle?
Be really short because I know I can reach you anytime. What are the biggest obstacles we're facing right now, and what are the main things we can do to help?
Well, the biggest obstacle, to be frank, is the real estate and the properties and the property. So what's going on there? Trying to identify the property owners, get them excited about the vision and seeing what they want to do. I know we've had some conversations about, some situations, just introducing, getting to know them. I feel I've made traction with the residents, but the property owners, some of them which are not from the community, just want to figure out how to get in touch with them to get them excited. The second part is businesses, right? So understanding small scale craft manufacturing businesses. We brought some partners on. So we have 2 partners, JASNA Associates, which is an economic development firm, and Alana Cross from Recast City, who does this work around the country. So identifying those businesses, whether they're Old Town Bowie or broader Bowie, and get them excited about that. Those are the 2 sort of biggest things we're dealing with. We have solutions to that, but we really want to activate the vision, get the community engaged before we tackle that piece.
I know this is going to sound silly. I'm sure you may have already done a version of this. But if you go down Chestnut Road and you have a hard time getting the residents, getting the businesses in question to talk to you, some of the residents who live on Chestnut Road are really great eyes and ears for the city and will often know things before any of us find them out. If you haven't already, I would hand out your business card to some of the residents along that area and just have them contact you if they see anything or find anything out, because every now and again we get intel from them. But I agree. I know from experience getting in touch with some of those folks is a little challenging.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate everything you do.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, thank you so
Mr.
very
Mayor,
much.
I just have a quick question.
Go right ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mark Lawrence, it's always a pleasure seeing you at Old Town Bowie Day of last year. It was great. Just, can you give us a little more framework around the partnership? How can you just...
So the partnership so the Community Development Corporation, which is the entrepreneurial body, sort of leads, right? So instead of just convening community, we actually want to own and develop spaces. And then we bring in other partners, right? So partners that do small-scale manufacturing, that built innovation spaces, partners that have done contract manufacturing facilities around food. And these are folks I've worked with in previous communities. So what I tap them in is for experience and expertise. And then depending on how we negotiate the real estate situation, some of them will want ownership, but we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a great 5-year plan to start. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none again. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilwoman Andrew Mamadu.
I just want to say, keep it up so you can figure out how to do this over in South Bowie.
Okay.
That's all.
Happy to do it. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so very much. We appreciate you coming in and the good work you're doing.
Thanks a lot, Mayor.
All right. Have a good night. At this time, we will move on to the Environmental Advisory Committee Annual Update.
Mayor and Council, I'm Tiffany Wright. I'm in the Department of Planning and Sustainability, and I just want to introduce Mr. John Teasdale, who's been leading our Environmental Advisory Committee for over a year now, and he'll present some of the committee's priorities for the coming year.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor and council members, as chair of the Bowie Environmental Advisory Committee, I want to address our priorities for fiscal year 2026. Before I get started, I want to acknowledge city staff for being proactive at addressing environmental challenges facing the city. Please make note of the many accomplishments that have been made as outlined in the State of Environment report that staff prepares each year. So our first priority, let's see, there should be slides. There we go. Okay. Got it. Our first priority is to initiate a program by Public Works for co-collection of food waste along with yard waste pickup. According to EPA, food waste makes up 24% of residential trash. This food waste has two negative effects. First, it costs the city a significant amount in tipping fees. I will give more details on this shortly. Second, decomposition of food waste in landfill releases methane, a powerful greenhouse gas that is 29 times more potent than carbon dioxide at causing global warming. Composting food waste is a preferred because food waste then decomposes under aerobic conditions and does not produce methane. Bowie residents have shown a lot of interest in composting. 273 residents have participated in a voluntary curbside pickup program. Also, 8 tons of food scraps have been dropped off at the green bins at the Ken Hill Center since that program was initiated earlier in 2024. Let's see. Staff has studied potential approaches extensively and determined that co-collection of food scraps with yard waste is the most feasible approach. It would utilize current trucks, staffing, and scheduling to pick up food scraps along with the standard yard waste pickup. It probably is most prudent to roll this out in stages, such as in quadrants of the city over a 4-year period. The county accepts food scraps with yard waste at the organics composting facility in Upper Marlboro and charges the same tipping fee as yard waste. The major expense would be an initial investment in 32-gallon green carts, such as the county currently uses in their curbside pickup program. Okay, Mark, it doesn't seem to be advancing.
Do we have
There we go.
assistance?
Okay, I got it.
You got it? Okay.
Speaking of tipping fees, I computed a rough estimate of the potential savings in tipping fees if every household participated in such a program. The tipping fee the city will pay for trash sent to the landfill this year will be $85 a ton. This will go up to $95 a ton next year, a sign the county is encouraging municipalities to divert trash away from the landfill. The tipping fee for yard waste is and will stay at $25 a ton, giving a $60 ton savings for diverting food waste from the landfill. In recent years, the city has landfilled approximately 20,000 tons of trash. If you assume this included the EPA average of 24% food waste, then Bowie could divert approximately 4,800 tons of food waste from the landfill to composting. Multiplying this times the $60 tipping fee cost saving. This would amount to a potential tipping fee savings of $288,000. Again, these figures represent the maximum potential savings. During the first year of such a program, we might expect about 10% participation, but this would still represent a $25,000 to $30,000 savings in tipping fees. In conclusion, on this priority, the Environmental Advisory Committee recommends that the city fund the Public Works solid waste budget in FY 2026 with sufficient funds to initiate a food waste co-collection program in one quadrant of the city. We have talked about this for several years now, but now it's time for action. Okay. Turning to our second priority, the city initiated a pilot landscaping program at the Midwood Lane Stormwater Pond in fall of 2023 that some of you participated in. This resulted in a successful establishment of a large number of native pollinator plants shown in this photo. We are recommending continued funding in the Public Works Stormwater Management budget for remediation and expansion of plantings at this site. Note that this pilot program can provide a template for future ecological landscaping in other stormwater sites as well as other city properties. Speaking of other city properties, this leads to a corollary of this priority, namely the need for a comprehensive citywide ecological landscaping plan. Let me make one thing clear. The city of Bowie is known for its well-kept turf grass and colorful annual flower beds, for its well-maintained playing fields and youth sports programs. So I'm not talking about changing any of that. I am talking about supplementing these with the operational capability and trained staff to support ecological landscaping that includes diverse populations of trees, shrubs, and herbaceous species. Potential benefits would include savings on turf management expenses, reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with intensive turf grass maintenance, and provision of additional ecological services to native food webs. Additionally, the Council of Governments has established a new urban tree canopy goal of 50% that will require the city to enhance our current tree canopy, which was last measured at 44%. Expanding our tree canopy, therefore, should be part of any ecological landscaping plan. Okay. Moving on to our third priority, this is to complete the next phase of our climate action and sustainability planning in a consolidated environmental action plan. So I was pleased tonight in the consent agenda to see that you've funded a contractor to complete this environmental action plan. Most of the objectives of the current climate action plan and sustainability plan have been implemented. Again, I acknowledge staff for their excellent work in these accomplishments. But there are new realities and technologies that need to be recognized, and new plans are needed to address them. Okay. One reality is that the current trajectory for reducing greenhouse gas emissions is insufficient to reach our goals. The graph on the left shows greenhouse gas emission data for the city of Bowie. This data was obtained from the Council of Governments in 3-year increments between 2005 and 2020. It shows a 27% decrease in emissions over this period. But the current climate action plan sets a 50% reduction goal by 2030, shown by the red dot on the lower right of the graph. It is clear that we need to accelerate our rate of greenhouse gas reduction if we are to meet this goal. The graph on the right shows emissions data for the state of Maryland. This EPA data is more extensive, giving annual data from 2005 to 2022. It is noteworthy that Maryland has achieved the largest greenhouse gas reduction of any state in the country, at 36% over this period. But even this trend will not be sufficient to meet the ambitious state goal of 60% by 2031, shown by the red dot on that graph. The point of this is to demonstrate that accelerated action will be required to meet both city and state greenhouse gas emission goals. Substantial guidance for achieving these greenhouse gas emission goals can come from one report that is already on hand. That is the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Strategy that was presented to Council on December 2nd by Loring Consulting Engineers. They identified many operational measures in this report that can be implemented relatively quickly and inexpensively. There are also more challenging measures required by the Building Energy Performance Standards that are mandated by the Maryland Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022. Although these standards set a challenging timetable, this timetable is compatible with the urgent timetable for reaching greenhouse gas goals as outlined in the previous slide. I want to conclude this portion of the talk with support for the Smart City framework that is under development by the IT department. As we develop plans for city sustainability, it is important to note that the concepts of a smart city are highly compatible with those of a sustainable city. The technologies advanced in the Smart City framework will be very important for integrating city operations for achieving sustainability goals. Integration is the operative word here. In particular, I want to point out that at the heart of integration is communication. So I recommend that the city make every effort to utilize new technologies that enhance communications, both between city staff in different departments within city government and between city staff and residents as they develop these smart city initiatives. This concludes my prepared presentation on priorities for the city of Bowie. In the meantime, another issue has come up at the state level that I recommend the City Council address. That is the bottle bill that is currently being considered in Annapolis. So the councilwoman noted trash and litter on Route 301, I believe it was. I brought actually a set of trash that I did a little walk this afternoon. I went no more than 5-minute walk from my house and just did a perimeter within that 2 to 5 minute area. And I got this shopping bag full. I stopped picking up after I filled this shopping bag, although I could have filled up probably 3 or 4 shopping bags with the amount of litter. But again, we have a Budweiser can. We have, what is this? A Sour Apple 4. I have no idea what that is. Plastic bottles of all sorts. Anyway, you get the idea that there's lots of bottles out there. Let me talk a little bit about this bottle bill. This bill establishes a beverage container deposit program in Maryland with a refundable deposit on metal, glass, and plastic beverage containers. The deposit is refunded to the customer when the beverage container is returned for recycling. The program relies on reverse vending machines and other new technologies for convenient container redemption. The program would be operated by a nonprofit organization representing producers that sell beverages in the state. The program would be self-financing, so would be revenue neutral to municipalities. Among several benefits, I will highlight two important benefits for the city of Bowie. First, a reduction in litter. The recycling rate of beverage containers sold in the state is currently only 25%. In other states where bottle bills have been adopted, recycling beverage containers has increased to 90%, thus saving considerably on litter that contaminates our community and the need to remove that litter. Second, savings can be made on tipping fees. So we're back to tipping fees again. This time I am talking about the savings by diverting the mass of beverage containers from the city waste stream. The Sierra Club estimates that Bowie could save up to $100,000 in tipping fees if this program were adopted. Let me say that there has been discussion of the impact of this program on county materials recycling facility. However, this bottle bill program would not go into effect until 2028, so there should be plenty of time to work out details during program implementation. In conclusion, the Environmental Advisory Committee has addressed this bill at our November meeting and supports this legislation. We encourage council to support this bottle bill legislation. I recommend using the resources, the letter templates that I recently sent you in an email, and that needs to be done before the House hearing date, which is coming up a week from Friday. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
There any questions?
Oh, would you like?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Comments and questions. First of all, thank you for all the good work that you and the committee do. Very much appreciated, and the community has benefited tremendously for your efforts, so thank you very much. Couple of things I want to weigh in on, and one is a follow-up question with regards to the commingling of food waste in with the green recycling that we do, the yard waste.
Yeah.
I know that there's a savings on tipping fees. Do we expect any additional costs associated? I know we've got bins that we would have to.
The bins, I think, would be the major cost. I think the other thing I can think of is if there was a larger response, if there were more residents that put out food waste than put out yard waste, then it could increase the number of stops that would need to be made. And that potentially could increase the amount of staff and the number of trucks is about the only thing I can think of. That's something that staff would have to give you more detail on.
You know, I think that would be a definition of what success looks like, right?
Right.
You get more people making use of that, and it would be money saving. The reason it comes to mind is I noticed that in the presentation that you recommend a quarterly approach to this, where you'd say a quarter of the city at a time and so forth. And I'm just curious if we have an idea of the offset, recognizing that we'll be, quote, saving money on tipping fees, how far that savings would take us in terms of buying the bins and kind of what the recovery time would be. It seems to me that probably the break even is probably, a year or two out, but it seems like it's, from a fiscal standpoint, a wise option.
Yes, I think that there was a study done early last year on various options. They presented several options, and the co-collection seems the most reasonable one to do. And in that study, I believe they did give a cost, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but a cost of the bins, and it would be more than the savings in tipping fees. So I suspect based on that, it would take a few years to earn back the money, the initial expense on green bins.
Yeah. Well, I think the savings is the gift that keeps on giving, because it keeps on going year after year. So I think the investment is wise. I think there's an opportunity here to titrate this, as you say, doing it on a quarter basis or what have you. But I do think, based on the feedback I've had from the community, people that I've spoken to, very much in support of this. So thank you for advancing this. And I'm looking over to staff, because I know that they are working on the next budget and will be incorporating that into it in some way, shape, or form. So look forward to that. The other comment is on this last element that you mentioned, and that's on energy efficiency and conservation strategy. It was the third item, I believe, before you got to the before you got to the bottle bill.
Right.
And I think that's the one item that worries me, is that there is a provision in the Energy Performance Standard Act, or Maryland Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022, which requires or instructs or directs these buildings to have on-site solar.
Right.
And we have gone to great lengths to offset our energy by having off-site solar, which puts us at a significant disadvantage. And I hate for us to go and, having purchased and gone through all the efforts, we just went through a big effort to expand our solar position, if you will. And now someone's going to try and tell me that I can't get credit for that. So I do think that there's some work, and there may be some legislative work that needs to be done in Annapolis to help resolve that conflict, because I hate to waste the efforts we've already exerted on this.
That certainly would help. It actually is a fairly complicated situation, because any energy savings from using solar, the way the system works is that the city actually sells RECs. And so the city does get income from that. So in my feeling that you'll have to talk to the city business manager whether the city would lose more by giving up those RECs and being able to count the greenhouse gas savings than if we just continued selling those RECs, because the city does get a stream of income from that. And the same thing is going to come up with the performance standards of whether it's going to be cost effective to replace the current equipment that we have on the two buildings that are subject to these standards, whether it's going to be more cost effective to pay the penalty or to actually replace them. So I think the city, as I say, is going to have to look at paying the cost of paying the penalty versus the income they get from Rex and the cost of replacing whatever equipment is required by the state.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Teasdale.
Sure.
I appreciate your presentation. I believe that smart cities are sustainable cities.
Yes.
I think they go hand in hand. One thing I know I mentioned probably sometime last year around the expansion of composting, and I agree it probably needs to be done in quarters of the city, but I somehow feel like districts 3 and 4, particularly going south of 197, are not getting the information, I guess. Maybe they're not as in tune. And I talked before about some type of educational outreach. I think that we do have to start thinking about things differently, but just as even with myself, I had to have several conversations before I could get my head wrapped around composting in my house somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, so education is very important, but I
Right.
do see a lot of food waste in my household, and it's just 2 of us. So it's something that I need to move into, so education always helps, so I'll bring that up. The other thing is, you mentioned the Maryland bottle bill at the end of your presentation, and I did get a briefing on that last week or so ago. And for those of us that are old enough to remember, particularly, I know in New Jersey we did it, years ago, if you had a glass bottle and you turned it in and you got like a nickel back or 2 pennies back, because the bottles were sent back to the companies that, your Coca-Cola bottles. This is the same concept,
Right.
except it uses technology to make it more efficient.
Exactly.
And so we're talking about 5.5 billion beverage containers that are sold in the state of Maryland alone.
Yeah.
And most of the roadside stuff is what you have in that bag, which are cans and bottles.
Exactly.
And so I think that the proposed legislation is something that we really have to pay close attention to. I think it's a low-hanging fruit. It's not a hard thing. It's just a matter of getting people's heads wrapped around, instead of throwing your, even putting your bottles in recycling, take it to a center and get a voucher back and get some money back. And we don't, I think it's a great initiative, and I just wanted to make those comments. That's it.
So again, education is the key there. And so I think with all these things, especially people get used to doing things one way and then you change it, and then that upsets people.
Yeah, so I appreciate the bill. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Estelle?
Hey, Mr. Teasdale, really appreciate you, and thank you for the very effective show and tell. Very quickly, is there a reason why 32-gallon containers for composting as opposed to something smaller?
I think the intent is that you could put in some of your yard waste as well. So it would hold both the yard waste and the food scraps.
So it's
Because you're
about the
right, if it
co-mingling.
was just to hold food scraps, the current pilot program that the city is running, they use the little 5-gallon buckets or whatever size they are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be to take both yard waste and food scraps. And of course, if people had big, jobs where they had bundles of sticks and that sort of thing, they'd be able to put those out separately.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Have you had any conversations with staff about what implementation would look like, and if they've given you any feedback?
Yeah, the sustainability manager has worked extensively during the last year. There's been turnover in public works, so I think there were some plans and arrangements that had been made earlier last year, but as I say, there's been some turnover since then, so I think you'll have to kind of start from scratch on that.
Understood.
Yeah.
My next question's for staff. Would we benefit from additional discussion with you all and with our Public Works Director on this if we want to look at what implementation would look like in the short or long term?
Well, the sustainability planner has been talking with the public works staff. We endeavor in the budget that I'm about to propose to improve our efforts to at food composting as best as we can afford it. And of course, but I welcome any kind of communications directly, but Dr. Ahn and his team have been in touch with Ashley, and we're working together on the food waste to make it a bigger and better event for 26.
Understood. Oh, I see planning and public works already sitting next to each other, so that's a great sign. Could I ask then, that as those conversations are happening, maybe we could get an update, if not at our next council meeting, maybe the subsequent one, just so we can kind of get more into the weeds about what this would actually look like, what would it cost, see some of our options, and kind of have more of an informed conversation up here about what we're looking at.
So we can certainly do that, Mr. Esteb, and also we'll be discussing it during the budget process too.
Yep, and we're, I think, all keenly aware that costs are going to be a real concern at all layers right now, but I think we're up for kind of an open discussion, and I think we can be frank with each other about what we can afford and what we can't, and what makes sense and what doesn't. But I really appreciate your guys' work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd just like to close it out by saying, we really do appreciate you coming. The report was good. I loved how you tied the sustainability into the smart city framework as well. So those are all good. Again, we appreciate you coming this evening and the briefing, and I think it was very enlightening to all of us. So thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
We will
Mr.
now.
Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You forgot about me.
You know what? I did. Could you come back, please?
Not a problem. Not a problem. My apologies for not being with you all. I am recovering from testing positive for COVID and didn't want to infect anyone or risk it. Mr. Teasdale, thank you for the presentation. I've got a few comments and questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. First off, I totally agree with the rollout, and I think it should be either half the city or all at once, more a function of what we can actually afford as far as the ability to do it. I know when we started the recycling with the big blue buckets, we had a federal grant. Now, after last Friday's situation in Washington, D.C., grants may be challenging, but we still need to pursue grants if possible and roll it out quicker if at all possible. I want to follow up on something that Dufour was commenting on with regards to our solar farm on Ensign property. I think we need to look more at solar and look at city properties. The next one that is obvious to me would be a large solar panel farm on the Church Road property that we acquired for the ice rink. It's out of the way. It's be low volume usage there. And it could be a revenue stream for the cities. That and rooftops as well as parking lots is something. So look at doing solar where possible. I appreciate staff's response to my numerous questions for tonight's meeting. And one of the items they provided me was a copy of a flow diagram that a previous chairman of the EAC, Steve Warenberg, generated in 2020. And I'm disappointed because of all the solid waste that goes in to the system that we collect. I'm disappointed to see that only 12% is actually recycled. It goes through several areas where they sort out things, and glass goes to the landfill instead of getting recycled. Metal goes to the landfill. So I'm just a little surprised, and maybe need to look at that and see if there's not something better we can do. Additionally, they provided information about the carts and said it was $50 per cart. So if you assumed approximately 20,000 homes in Bowie, then that's $1 million for the cart. So we have our tasks ahead of us as far as getting that done. I would like to suggest, I've mentioned this to Maddie in the city manager's office, recently saw where a year after they finished their work on Mitchellville Road, Prince George's County planted over 50 trees on a 1-mile stretch of Mitchellville Road. So I think we need to send them a letter of thanks, but it leads me to think that there are other opportunities for planting trees, and I'll resurrect one from my previous time on the council, and that is to suggest the EAC reach out to the different HOAs. Some of them, not all of them, some of them have large open areas that they maintain mowing, and maybe that's an opportunity to expand the tree coverage in selected parts of the city. So that's just a thought for the committee to think about.
Yeah, I think, Council Member, yeah, the places that I've been thinking, the stormwater ponds is definitely one, because those, as those get renovated, they get stripped of trees. So there certainly is an opportunity to replace trees on those sites. But I think your idea of HOAs is a good one. I know the stormwater manager for the city, I believe, is talking to HOAs about that option. Is that right, Tiffany?
It is, yeah. So we've started a homeowner association technical assistance program, and I did a sort of a pilot last year with a small townhome community off of 301. And we hope to expand that. I have a couple of HOAs that I know have expressed interest in the past. So what I do is I go with them to their property and identify, areas for conservation landscaping, even, edible landscaping. We had one person plant, some herbs and things in our yard, and also tree plantings. So yeah, and then I help them apply for grants to get that stuff done. So yeah, that's underway, thanks.
Well, very good. I appreciate that. And Mr. Teasdale, appreciate your leadership in this, and look forward to working with you in the coming year on these issues. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you for coming. We will now move on to the Police Department update. And Chief, next time we'll try to get you a little higher up on the agenda.
Good evening once again. I'm gonna try to breeze through this as quickly as we can, and then be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone from the council has. So start with staffing as an update. We're authorized 67 sworn officers, but we currently have 8 vacancies for the position, sworn officer position. And we have an additional 6 officers that are either on light duty, no duty, or administrative leave. So significant challenges, and as you'll see later when we get into the statistics, that's played a significant role in terms of our ability, to staff and to conduct patrol activities. We have 21 civilian employees. We have a total of 4 vacancies, 3 dispatchers, and 1 evidence tech position. Moving on to crime.
I apologize if I may, just quick to avoid later. How many did you say we have vacant in sworn officers?
We have 8 vacancies.
8, thank you.
One thing is I will note is that we do currently have 5 recruit officers in the current academy class. The next academy class we anticipate to be the spring of this year, and our recruitment efforts are strong. So we anticipate on being able to fill those 8 vacancies with an upcoming class. But generally that training takes about 7 months. So the realization of those officers added to the complement will still take some time.
Excellent news. Thank you.
For calls for service, we handled a total of 30,709 calls for service compared to 31,313 that we handled in 2023. For crime-related things, we've seen a significant increase, mostly in property crime. Commercial burglaries was a huge jump for us. In 2023, we had 27 commercial burglaries, and in 2024, we had 51. That large increase was attributed to several smaller shopping centers and smaller business establishments where people were smashing the glass window, either targeting the cash registers that the business owners leave a little bit of money left in the till, all the way up to some businesses that had ATM machines where they were attempting to steal the ATM. One of the things we have noticed recently is that trend has slowed. And so as we enter into 2024, we haven't seen that rate in terms of commercial burglary. So we're optimistic that that will continue, but we continue to monitor that. All of those crimes mostly occur in overnight hours when the businesses are closed. Auto thefts were slightly down from 2023, along with the category of robbery and thefts. But thefts is where we're also seeing a huge increase. And our theft from auto numbers really increased in the months of November and December of 2024. By example, in 2023, in November, we had 10 theft from autos. In 2024, we had a total of 47. In December of 2023, we had 16. We had a total of 40 in 2024. So one of the things in our strategies, as we have our biweekly crime meeting, is to really focus on our efforts surrounding theft from auto. One of those things that we believe that the contributing factor is Route 50 along the 301 corridor and 197 is where we're seeing the majority of our theft from autos occurring. So we have strategies. I'm not going to talk publicly about the efforts that we're doing, but those are things that we'd be more than willing to share with the council. Not in a public setting, but we have several strategies, things we're also working and that we presented in our FY26 budget to the city manager that we think will help us achieve those goals moving forward to reduce those property crimes. That's by far the most significant challenge that we have in the city is property crime, and specifically overnight.
May I interrupt for another quick second here? The categories you have of auto thefts and thefts, is auto thefts thefts from automobiles or of automobiles?
Auto thefts are stolen vehicles.
Complete stolen vehicles. So this is a continuation, while it's down a touch.
Yes.
It is a huge jump from 2021, sustaining itself now for the third year, and I'm sure continuing for 25. What do we attribute this spike? I mean, other than obviously higher rates in crime, but has it just been a consistent part of a broader regional trend, or is this something that's typical is this atypical and an increase that is just being seen here in the city?
So it's a combination. It is regional, so it's not just impacting the city. As you remember, last year we dealt with a high number of Hyundai and Kia vehicles being targeted. That trend has continued to some degree into 2024. But in addition to that, we saw a high spike in Infiniti vehicles also being stolen. The method for those was different. What we found out is that there's a way that criminals are purchasing a device to steal the programming code off the remote, your remote, for keyless key fob. And they're utilizing that by cloning that device and able to steal the vehicle. So we've seen an increase in the number of vehicles being stolen that way. One of the things we've done is we've been working with the manufacturer. And as you'll see, we've done at least on 3 different occasions where we've passed out clubs to owners that have Hyundai and Kia vehicles. We obtain those clubs directly from the manufacturer free of charge. And so what we try to do is reach out to residents that are owners of those vehicles. We confirm that they're city residents and that they own that type of vehicle, and we provide them with the club in hopes that it will make those vehicles a little more difficult to steal.
Thank you. And while we're on this chart, can you send me this chart with just in a spreadsheet so that I'd like to be able to graph them, but when it's in a PDF, it makes it tough.
Sure.
Thank you.
And yeah, sure. And we can have another offline conversation. We have probably another method that may be able to plot them on a map that make a little more sense, so you
Excellent.
can get an
Thank
idea of
you.
location. Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Chief, have you seen some of this crime increase happening in the newer subdivisions like Melford and South Lake? I don't know if there's anyone living over in Mill Branch, but have you seen activity in those areas as well that help increase this number at the end of 2024?
Yes, we have, and it continues. Just overnight, we had 2 theft from autos from South Lake. This morning, we had one where the rims and tires were stolen from a vehicle, and then some items were stolen from another vehicle this morning. We've also had, even in the apartments in Melford, which is a secure parking garage, what they're doing is piggybacking and taking the opportunity to follow residents into the garage, and then they're stealing vehicles out of the garage. We had an occurrence about 2 weeks ago of that. So we are seeing, crime. Like I said, everything is along 301 or 197 is primarily what we're seeing. I repeatedly, make this statement that we have strong indications that the crime that's being committed is being committed by individuals that don't live in the city. And I believe that they're utilizing the thoroughfare Route 50 to get into the city, and they're hitting those locations that are right off of that to easy access to get into the city and easy access to escape. In one instance last week, we had in Elder Oaks, and I had a community matters meeting there just past Wednesday. A couple nights before that, we actually had 30 theft models in one night, and that targeted Elder Oaks as well as the Comfort Inn. And we were able to engage the suspect vehicle, a short pursuit. We were engaged in, but due to policies, we had to terminate their pursuit, but they fled into Anne Arundel County. And so there's a lot of challenges that we're dealing with as it relates to that. But, as I mentioned, there's some technology that we're going to be implementing to hopefully at least alert us to the presence. It's still the challenge of actually doing the enforcement is really where we run into the challenges of being able to make a successful apprehension, based upon some of the restrictions that we have.
Thank you very much.
All right, Chief, go right back.
I would say, and I always take specific questions but we have our community services team has done numerous homeowner association meetings, community events, all of the community matters, support Shop with a Cop, all of those events that they do each and every year. But in addition to that, what we've had to do is utilize not only our investigators, but also our community services team to supplement our patrol operations. So they're backfilling for patrol because of the shortages that we have due to the vacancies. So it's having an impact on the entirety of the police department in terms of the services we're able to provide, because we're going to have to pull back from those other services that we generally provide to do the basic service of patrol work. Right now, we don't have a proactive unit. We used to have a special assignment team. We've had to disband that due to the vacancies. So that makes it even more challenging as it relates to being proactive to go after some of these crime trends that we're seeing. So we're hopeful as the staffing levels increase that we'll be able to bring back the proactive units, and we'll be able to dedicate more time to really go after the problematic areas that we're seeing throughout the city. One of the things I did want to highlight in terms of traffic accidents,
we've seen a decrease of 19% of crashes. However, we've seen impaired driving increase by 23%. And the arrests associated with that have increased by 40% compared to last year. So we do see an increase in the impact as it relates to the abuse of whether it's illegal substances or alcohol. We are seeing an increase, and that's resulting in more traffic accidents and more arrests. That's all of the prepared information that I think is of substance. We could, so I'll open it up to any questions that the council may have.
Councilman Lambda Mamadu. Does he have his hand up?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much, Chief. Great presentation. I don't think it's appropriate for me to ask like detailed questions about it, but I do want to just highlight that I did enjoy our conversation around how we're thinking about using technology going forward to really support our police department. So I'm just very, very excited about your efforts. I commend you for those efforts. I find them to be very proactive, very innovative, and just very thoughtful with the community in mind, and also some of the broader concerns around technology use in mind too. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions at this time? Okay, I think we can say thank you so very much, Chief, for all you do and all you have done. I know we are a city that's a shining light to so many because of all the hard work that our police department does. So thank you so much. Was there a comment you wanted to make, Councilman?
Just echoing the mayor's words, I really appreciate the constant public engagement. I mean, I don't have to tell you it's why you do it, but it really does go a very long way in improving public trust. And I think it's one of the biggest reasons we get such positive feedback from you guys. They see you, they know you're present in the community, and so please keep it up. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I did forget to mention, I'm sure that if there are any questions surrounding the Safe Speed program and speed cameras, I know there was a significant increase in citations issued, and that was due to the addition of the 12 cameras for the residential areas. We did the last rotation, and that should have covered, or this last rotation should have covered all of the authorized locations that you all approved that was done on February 3rd. So we've at least had every location that's been authorized has had a camera deployed over the last calendar year. So if there's any questions about that, I'll be more than happy to answer.
And I think that was the next item we had, Chief, because I think that may go with you. It's a council discussion on stop sign designations and placement. I wanted to get your take on that as we go into that.
Yeah,
while we have you.
I'll be here for that discussion as well. So if there's any questions coming up with that, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Well, at this time, why don't we move on to the next item, and I will turn it over to City Manager.
Yes, sir. There was a question about stop sign designations and placements and how it happens. I think Mr. Wolfley and Mr. Esteb were asked to have this placed. I asked Dr. Ahn, our new Public Works Director, who is a licensed engineer and civil engineer, so he's an expert at this traffic management and our own policies. So we're here to answer questions and respond to the council members who asked for this to be put on the agenda.
Thank you, City Manager, and welcome.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for kind welcoming. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. If we move forward, are there any particular questions? Councilman Estelle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to dive right in. Dr. Hahn, appreciate it. It was almost exactly a year ago that this council had a lengthy conversation about our traffic policies, traffic calming. I'm sure you've been brought up to speed, but as a quick summary from the world, from our perspective, we get complaints quite often about speeding in residential neighborhoods, right? Over the years, I have probably made, I don't know, 20, 30 requests for traffic studies in different locations around the city. I think all have come back as negative for meeting the city's fairly high bar for traffic calming. And so I recognize that speed humps can be challenging for a number of reasons. I realize that perception is often not reality. You know, residents sometimes swear a car is going 55 miles an hour, and upon close examination, it's actually going 35, miles an hour or 45 miles an hour. But this is such a pervasive problem that we up here on the dais have been dealing with in some places. We're kind of at the point where we're grasping for anything we can do to show residents that we're listening and to try and solve the problem, even minimally. And a few of us have gotten really excited about the ideas of stop signs as a form of achieving that goal. Not as disruptive as a speed hump, but a way of forcing residents to stop, or at a minimum, slow down a lot, pay a little bit more attention, and just create slowdowns where they don't currently exist. There's also a couple places where we personally think that four-way stops are a logical thing, like at Superior and Stony Brook, which I'm going to let Councilmember Wolfley talk about in a moment. So I just want you to know this is where our thinking is. I got lists of locations. I realize that for every four-way stop, or this council by majority vote might say, put them up, we don't care what the surveys say. I realize we might get, blowback from some residents who don't like it. But having done this for a little while, I am extremely confident that most residents are going to thank us for putting these up, even if they're not ideal from an engineering perspective, even if they're not ideal from a best practices perspective. But I just want to give you a very honest appraisal of what our thinking is right now. And I'm happy to turn it over to any of my colleagues who want to talk more about this or hear from you, however we want to do this.
I'll chime, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Stev. I'll piggyback on his comments, and I'll kind of take it a step farther in terms of this, the standards which we use. And I know that we are using the national standards that get handed down, and then we utilize the county guidelines as well. And the problem I have with that is that those are not necessarily reflective of our needs. And I think that we here, as the closest body to our citizens in terms of accountability and accessibility, have a better understanding of what the community is looking for and needs, and the standards that are set for a much larger organization, say the county, has different sets of concerns. They are concerned with, well, I can't afford to put a stop sign on every street corner because I got a bazillion streets. Or it may be the speed or, percentage-wise, I can only afford but so much. And there is actually a concern and at the larger scale about through traffic and the ability to actually affect, negatively affect transportation needs in a broader environment. We don't have those sorts of things hanging over our head. The traffic impediment to a speed hump is not going to slow down, throughput on these roads to the point where has an adverse effect on the transportation network. So I think we need to kind of step back and reassess, our past reliance on these national and regional kind of standards and start looking at where we need to make modifications so that they more properly reflect what our constituents are looking for. I too have had the similar sort of thing in terms of the number of people who are looking for, support for traffic calming. I think I've had a slightly better success rate than Mike, but not a lot. But I think that just means that they were worse circumstances in my neighborhoods than they were in his. So I think that that's a big issue we need to do. And I do think that there is one that sticks out there, Councilman Stev mentioned it, which is at Superior and Stony Brook. It's a three-way location. There's already one stop sign there on Superior. Stony Brook does not have a stop sign, or two stop signs is what's needed there. but that intersection has kind of just barely fallen short of getting relief. And the problem is I have constituents that live in those houses and they don't care too much about what our report says because they've had their fence driven into on a number of occasions. They've had people in their front yard. They've seen near accidents or accidents, children almost getting hit and that sort of thing. And it's kind of mox nix. We can go about what we want in terms of a theoretical level, but the fact of the matter, it's a high-risk intersection for us. So I know that, with the support of my colleagues on the council, we'd like to see, stop signs put in place there, and perhaps we'll put that on the consent agenda for next time. But the reality is these sorts of things, pervade throughout the community, and we want to be in a better position to respond to those without going on a binge where we have, a speed hump on every road. I don't think anybody's looking for that. And I do think that there may be some options. We did deploy some temporary speed humps that have been in place for quite some time because they've been successful over on Twisting Lane. But there may be places where we say, you know what, we put them down temporarily and pull them up. And in the case of Twisting, I would say we would pull those temporaries up and put in permanents and then make use of those temporaries elsewhere to see if they have positive effect, and then they can be removed, as appropriate after some course of time. So we welcome you aboard, and we look forward to your expertise in helping us solve this kind of persistent problem, because as Mike says, speeding has been one of the biggest concerns for our constituents. It's why I was such a big proponent of expanding the traffic cameras, the speed cameras, and why we have that effort now. So that's kind of where we are, and I look forward. We can chat at any point in time. Look forward to hearing from your comments this evening as well, but look forward to working with you as we solve these in the future.
I'd like to comment as well, kind of following up with that. I think it is important, if we can, to make sure we look at what are the typical model for a city of our size on how we go about placing stop signs and other things. I think that's a good thing for us to understand. What is it for a city this size as opposed to the entire county? But the other thing would be, I think working with the chief and what my colleague just talked about is looking at those places where there may be an unusual situation where, and I'm sure, Chief, you would have a good handle on that to be able to pass on, of where there are accidents, where there are people running into the roads and all, and look at how we can address that moving forward. Because I think that goes back to what we're all talking about, but I understand there are some responsibilities we have of where we can place them and how and all of those things. But I think it's important that we also look at where we may need to improve just for the safety of our community. And City Manager, I think I saw you wanted to comment.
I could. The traffic management policy is, of course, belongs to the City Council, and you have a right to overrule it. You did so with Twisting Lane, and we put those temporary, permanent, /permanent things in place. I think I understand what you all are telling me in the consensus. You want us to look at our traffic management policy and adjust the standards to accommodate, to be more accommodating. Is that correct?
I agree with that to the extent that we still look at what is typical for a city of our size.
Well, I mean, this is my fourth city. I mean, College Park is kind of small. It was all about what the residents wanted and subsequently what the council enforced. In College Park, there were, if you go to the Hollywood area, College Park, if you know what it is, there's two speed humps in each block. And what it took was a majority of the population to sign a petition in that block, and they got their speed hump, or they got the stop sign. So they had a petition system, so it was all generated from the residents, and that accommodated. In Georgia, it was a lot more difficult. The city and the county relied on the traffic professionals, the civil engineers to come in and do studies and tell them where to put one thing or another. But we can adjust the policy. Also, we can add a component to the policy that says, you know, the city council has the absolute right to overrule this particular recommendation if it sees fit, which is the case. So we can rewrite it so it's more accommodating to the council and your residents, but we still take into consideration what the industry says, because the county's cool. I mean, we took their rules and looked at them, and so, but if that standard's too far away from what the residents want, all cities are different in their own right. And so Bowie could be different like that, but College Park is already like that way. So is Tacoma Park. And in other cities where when you have small rights of way, but a lot of people living on them and people coming through. And they do things to slow them down. If you ever want to go from Rhode Island Avenue in Hollywood over to Route 1, you're going to hit five speed humps because the residents wanted them, they petitioned, and they got them. Now, you better go slow because they're big fellas, but they slow people down at least for a moment. What I'm prepared to do with Stony Brook and Superior is we'll ask Mr. Ahn and his team to do there's a study that can be done about stop signs for that intersection. So we'll know what the industry says about them. And at that point, if the council still wants them, 4 votes, the three-way stop sign stops going up. And so, but I think we ought to do the study first, since we have the money for it and we have the people to get it done. For that intersection.
I actually.
All right, thank you, City Manager. I have a question from Councilwoman Andrew, and then I'll move to Dennis.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the context from both sides of the conversation. I think this conversation is a little bigger than just that street. A year ago, we had this conversation around speed and 4-way intersections, striping, et cetera, and there was a list of streets that were submitted. And I don't know about any of these members on this body. I haven't heard significant detail about where those streets stand in the prioritization or the stack rank. It's still something that's prevalent to me. I know in District 4, a big street was Atlantis Drive. I know we did get like a speed meter thing that went up where it says, hey, like it starts flashing when you're over a particular speed. But that doesn't deter people because then they just drive right past it and keep speeding. So I'm not sure that that really meets the objective of what I personally am looking to see on behalf of District 4. And so I think it's a broader conversation of, yes, the stop signs, but then also like the striping, when is that going to happen and when is that coming? And then these other measures that we're prepared to take that we probably need to discuss in more details in this next budget cycle. So I think it's a little bigger than just Stony Brook Drive. There are other streets, and I think for me, I'd like to receive a follow-up on where all of those streets that we submitted a year ago stand in the grand scheme of things today.
Well, some striping went on. However, you can't stripe when it's really cold. So we're going to start that up in earnest in March when the weather temperatures get about 55 degrees. And otherwise, you'll waste the paint and the material. But we'll be happy to come back in March with Mr. Mears and his team to give you all an update on what's occurred over the last year. He got voluntold, right?
Sounds good.
That's the way it goes.
All right, let me go to Council. I'll let you come right back.
Just a quick question, just to add to that.
Go ahead.
That would be really helpful. And then when you come back in March, if you can share like, hey, striping went here, but it didn't go here for X reason. So at that point we can consider where stop signs or where other things need to go. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman. Mr. Brady.
Councilman Brady?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. You know, we had already identified you were next. That's why I said it that way.
Okay. Just want to make sure. I didn't want to jump the gun if I wasn't next. So to start off, I'm a little frustrated because this topic wasn't, where we are now is not what I thought. I had a conversation with a couple of my colleagues previously, and it would have been helpful had there been something a little more than just a statement that we're discussing stop signs. That's just to get it off my chest. As far as the issue with stop signs, I have grave concerns. The reason you do warrants, the reason you do a study and analysis, and the reason you set criteria for changing the situation is the legal jeopardy you can place the city in for doing something that is not supportable. So before we authorize changing say Stony Brook and Superior to an always stop, we need to, one, review our policy and redefine our thresholds as appropriate, and two, do a study to verify that it meets it. And that will keep us out of any legal limbo, if you will. So that's what I would suggest we start off with doing, is having tasks. Look at the study, or look at the requirements of the studies, see if there are elements that are appropriate to be added that are unique to Bowie, and develop a worksheet structure that will allow us to assess all of the intersections that's necessary, and address this problem. A related issue I would suggest is that we should be proactive rather than responsive on the issue of striping of the roads. I personally believe every length of every drive in the city should be striped according to narrowing the footprint to give the appearance of a narrow road. We shouldn't wait for citizens to complain and then we go out and do a study. It should be designed that way, and we move forward, and the strategy is to figure out how much is it going to cost to do it, when can we do it, and move forward on it. A similar thing with this would be to look at statistics, traffic safety statistics and the like, and complaints, and figure out which intersections should be considered for multiple, 3 or 4 way stop, rather than waiting for a citizen to call a council member up. So, those are my thoughts on this. That I'm just very concerned that I don't want to see on the next consent agenda authorization to put a all-way stop at Superior and Stony Brook on the agenda without supporting evidence that will basically free us from potential litigation. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Rogers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I hear maybe 3 phases of things. One, including looking at the policy. I've heard that from Councilman Esteve and Wolfley that there may be some specific issues or concerns within their districts. And I heard from Councilwoman Enda Dumas. Oh, I tried. I'm okay. I'm almost there. That, we talked about this last year, and we had a whole strategy around slowing people down. Now, I will say this. In the subdivision that I live in District 3, there are stop signs on every cross street within the community, and people don't stop. Okay, so it's a behavior thing. So if we have immediate concern, and I come down Stony Brook and Superior all the time, if there's an immediate concern, and we know that it's an issue because we know that the behavior is not to stop, to me, those are small things. Those are the low-hanging fruits that we can take care of. The other pieces, to me, may require more studying and policies put in place to make sure that it's comprehensive for the entire city. So I just wanted to make that comment, and I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your time.
Yeah, so I think we're all generally on the same page. Looking at what we can do, looking at where those spots are that really open us up to some real potential additional incidents, people running in the yards and accidents and all of those. So we'll just put that together. I think you kind of covered that, City Manager.
Right.
And we'll look forward to seeing that and getting that next in March. All right, having said that, if there's any other comment, if not, we'll move forward. Thank you so much. And again, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman.
We will now, the council discussion on the City of Bowie Shopping Center standards. And Councilwoman Ndamamadu.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So good evening again. Very excited to see code compliance here, my favorite team, who is always on it. So I brought this discussion and this agenda item forward because I've been receiving a lot of emails from District 4 residents, and I know this is a shared sentiment across the board from many of my colleagues around the state of the shopping centers that are in the city of Bowie. Recently, as of lately, there's been significant numbers of trash pile up at different shopping centers, whether that's in Pointer Ridge Plaza, I'll speak specifically for District 4, or whether that's at standalone stores when we drive through Mitchellville Road into District 3, where the Kohl's shopping center is in the parking lot. There's just been a lack of care and a lack of proactive, I guess you would say, participation by these shopping center owners within our community. And so my purposes of bringing this discussion forward is to learn from staff, what are the things that we need to be thinking of to work with our county and our state legislators to ensure that we are able or in a stronger position to hold shopping center owners accountable when they are not being good community neighbors? I know that the last time we had a similar discussion to this, we were a little binded because the state of Maryland had a particular fine level, then the county had a fine level, and then we have a fine level. So even if we were to say, hey, hypothetically, I'm not saying we're doing this, but hypothetically, even if we were to say, hey, we're going to increase fines for aesthetics or debris to $5,000, we wouldn't even be able to do that because the state has their threshold, and that means the county has their threshold. And so what I'd like to explore during this discussion is to learn what are the things that we need to be in mind so that we can have the right level of advocacy with our colleagues on the county and the state level to make sure that we can hold shopping center owners accountable and to help them understand what standard we'd like to see here in the city of Bowie so our constituents find this to be a happy place to continue to live. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to staff and.
Well, I think this is an issue of code enforcement, and we have our code enforcement supervisor here who can talk about that aspect and what we can do and what we've done in the future. So Jamie, if you chime in and start talking about that, appreciate you.
Sure. Hi. Jamie Braun, Code Enforcement Supervisor. So specifically, we have a program where we have a specific code enforcement officer that is investigating all commercial properties at least once a week, every single week. And we know that there are some continuing problems in certain shopping centers, and we do pay attention to those. We recently have had to clean up Pointer Ridge Shopping Center. That bill will be going to the Pointer Ridge Shopping Center owner, and we are issuing municipal infractions in addition to that. We changed the law back in 2012 to be the first violation is $100, the second violation is $300, the third violation is $500, and every violation thereafter is $1,000. If that needs to be changed again, I'm sure that we can change that in the city code so that when it comes to commercial property violations for property maintenance, and again, that is just exterior property maintenance, we don't have any control over the interior portions. So trash or upkeep, things like that. We can certainly I think, look at that and change that again upon your direction. And, we are doing everything we possibly can to get these centers to cooperate. The thought process of having to do a public nuisance violation on a commercial property is something that is a new situation for us, because all management companies have always been able to make sure everything, because they have the money for this. It's set up in their budgets. So when this is a new concept that we're running into. Now, I will say that with the CVS, we ran into this weekend. They had some trash issues over the weekend, but by the time we got there today at 9 a.m., it was all gone, other than the stuff in the right-of-way. Now, the right-of-way issues are obviously another problem, right? Because when we're talking about CVS at the corner of Mitchellville and 301, we have state highway and we have the county, because we don't have the authority to regulate those rights-of-way. So those get complicated, but we can reach out to our counterparts, like we were talking about, to try and get them to clean up those areas. It's just an ongoing issue, unfortunately, because as we know, the whole entire section along 301 is just rife for litter. And same thing with 214 and 50. And so, but when it comes from a code enforcement standpoint, we have the laws in effect. We would just need, I think, more incentive for the property owners to comply, other than the first fine being $100. I think that is probably not sufficient at this point, but I digress.
Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that response. I appreciate it. I think it's bigger than a code and compliance issue. And when this first came up, my concern was around Bowie Town Center and they lowering their standards around the holiday time. And they said it was because of short staff, but they only put up the bows rather than the trees and everything else. So my perspective is a bit different from actually being punitive. It's more that these retail establishments and their property management teams need to understand they are a part of a community, and they should act as such. And so they, all they have to do is drive through the community. All they have to do is read about the community, come to our website, and recognize that in order to be a part of a community, you have to have certain standards. So the community has certain standards. So my thought was around engaging the property managers, those that run those shopping centers, to talk about community standards, because I can tell you right now, there is a pothole in front of the tire shop right over there by Michael's, right over that shopping center, that has been there at least 9 or 10 years. 9 or 10 years. And that tells me that their standards are not such that comport with the community of Bowie. So I don't see that as much of a compliance issue as it is, if they want to be a part of the community, we need to have these conversations. Represent the community's retail outlets. So therefore, let's try to reflect that in the way your premises look. I went down past FedEx Field the other day, and it looks like Miller's Farms, or the Millers have bought that shopping center over there right across the street. And the facade is all different. They're fixing up the parking lot, and they're coming in and they're investing in the community. And that's all we're looking for from those that run or are managing commercial properties or retail properties here within Bowie, is a standard. So maybe it's a community roundtable with those folks that are the property managers, just to have, and this goes to Mr. King's in his bailiwick a little bit more, how do we engage? And maybe this is something that the the Economic Development Committee looks at, how can we engage these property managers so that they are reflective of our standards for ourselves. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
We will go to you, Councilman Brady.
Okay. Thank you. I couldn't agree more with what my colleague, my at-large colleague, Councilwoman Rogers said. And it just struck me that, all too often when we deal with the different properties, the shopping centers, that we are usually talking about getting code enforcement to go down and cite them. And she made a good point about having a dialogue, a conversation, talking to them about being a part of the community. So I think it'd be more than just having the committee. There should be a lot of conversations in parallel, but I think one of probably the most valuable would be for us as a body to invite them in and do it on an annual basis or a semi-annual basis and talk about the shared vision and talk about how they are important to us and, what is it we can do to help them and what can they do to help us and, try and move it in a more friendly and more established way rather than, you send the sheriff down to talk to somebody and they usually riles and ruffles the feathers a bit. So maybe we ought to do it in a more positive fashion. So I would suggest that coming out of this, maybe we ought to not necessarily engage or have code enforcement engage a little harsher and harder, but rather open a dialogue and try to find a vision that we both can share and move forward on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. I'd like to go to Councilman Truesdale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with my colleagues on both sides of the spectrums in terms of just making sure that, these developments, not developments, but the shopping plazas have, our best interests as a city in mind. I made a phone call, as a business owner, I made a phone call to one of the shopping plazas in our area, and they were mixed up in terms of, getting my information, thinking that they was talking to someone from Northern Virginia somewhere on one of their other sites. And they were giving me all of the amenities and everything. And when it came to find out that, it was in Bowie, it was like, oh, let me get back to you. In terms of, you have shopping plazas, you have shopping owners that have other plazas in other places. I think it's very important that we are able to engage in conversation with them to whereas they know our standard, and like one of my colleagues just shared, the share standard of our community as well as what they offer, not only in service, but what they offer to give our community. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Ndabamadu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate all the comments that have been mentioned so far. So let me take a step back for us to go forward and give some historical context. I think really we're talking about two separate issues that are not to be conflated as one. One is the issue of trash and cleanliness in the city of Bowie around shopping centers. That's a completely separate issue. And then the other issue that is now being raised is community partnership. When we talk about trash and cleanliness, let me speak on behalf of District 4. It is a problem. I drove around those community centers myself. In reference to the CVS, because I was there this weekend, and I spoke to their management team this weekend because this is a constant issue with the CVS where trash will pile up outside and it's all over the parking lot. It's in the bins, it's by the door, it's all over the park. It's almost like they walk there and brush it out and scatter it around. And so it's really, really bad. And so I spoke to their management team this weekend and, asked if everything was okay, if they were short-staffed. to try to understand, which is probably why by the time code enforcement got there, it was cleaned up. But this is a reoccurring issue around the shopping centers in the city of Bowie, so much so that so many residents consistently email and complain about it, saying that the standards of cleanliness has gone downhill in the city of Bowie. So let me be clear about that on behalf of District 4. And I think the second issue is on the aspect of community partnerships. Now, I'm sure John Henry King may give more context to this, but we did do a roundtable discussion with shopping center owners. I know that because I pushed that initiative. We invited them in with their property managers. We had a call with them. And what I typically see, I'll speak on the owners I'm familiar with, i.e. Pointer Ridge Plaza. They'll come in, give pleasantries, or not show up at all, give pleasantries, and then nothing else will happen from there. And that's pretty much been the consistent experience. I'm not saying that's every single shopping center owner in the city of Bowie, because you have some that are better than others. But with the Bowie Town Center, as we know, they've recently been sold, so completely new ownership, so completely new opportunity. We've had this conversation with them over and over and over and over again. So I think at this point, it's time to mature to a more, let's say, forward-looking conversation and include our county and state counterparts, because I think at the end of the day, this is just a murky area where we don't have a ton of jurisdiction over the way that somebody is a community partner when it comes to commercial property, and the way that they even get approved to come into the city is not really within our purview. And so I think I just want to be clear about separating those two issues, that they're not the same. And in regards to Jamie's comments, I do believe that this is something that we should have a more deeper discussion around budget cycle on increasing fines, because like Jamie talked about, and this is not the first time that we've sent a bill to the Pointer Ridge Plaza. We've cleaned it up, we've cut their grass, we've done it multiple times, yet this is still their engagement model. And so I think at this point, we need to consider some other options.
All right. Thank you. I would like to, I know this is going on a little bit, ask, as we're coming up on the budget cycles, do we have enough code enforcement officers?
At this point, we do. But we do have a schedule for in FY27 to add more because of everything that's coming in for South Lake, Mill Branch, and Milford, because those areas are increasing exponentially, and their commercial areas are increasing much faster than their residential areas.
So as we go into budget, and I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, it would be beneficial as these things are coming online to have additional resources?
For FY27, not to 26.
Okay. All right. Yeah, right. I'm sorry, Councilman.
The mayor and I made eye contact, and I promised through my eye contact that I would be short. Mr. Henry King and Ms. Braun, on shopping centers in general, there's a few different things that fall into a few different buckets. I just want to make note of them, or ask you to make note of them. Maybe we can follow up offline. A few different categories of complaints that we're getting. And I know with Councilmember Ndibu Madu's experience, I've had very similar experiences to her with one or two specific centers in North Bowie, where I just don't feel that the property owner is responsive or cares to be responsive. Just it's the nature of the beast. Unusually bright lights. So we had our environmental friends here earlier. We're getting LEDs everywhere, and now people are complaining about the LEDs. Solutions that we can work proactively with our shopping centers on to help mitigate bright LED lights traveling out in all directions like an airport into our residential neighborhoods from our shopping centers, 1. 2, store vacancies. I really would never have believed that I would have said these words out loud, but I'm saying them. Other towns in Maryland have looked at and implemented vacancy fees and taxes for stores that have lengthy vacancies. I would like us to start looking into best practices. I agree with Mr. Brady that we should have carrots in these conversations, but I also want to begin understanding where the sticks have been successful in other places. I agree with Councilmember Ndibu Madu on the litter issue, and I would just ask you guys to follow up with us via email. Just help us understand when a resident has a pothole, a missing stop sign, litter at one of these locations,
what is the simplest and best place for them to reach out to, and who should they be CCing on the council or amongst staff to make sure that it's being taken care of? Because with some of these shopping centers, I'm finding out we have to reach out again and again and again for little things. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments at this time? If not, thank you so very much for coming in and answering our questions. We do appreciate that. Staff, we appreciate all that you've done, welcoming the new faces to the city, and I know you'll do a great job. Having said that,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to closed session under the statutory authority of the Maryland Annotated Code, General Provisions, Articles, Section 3-305, subparagraph B and line 7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and Section 3-305, B8, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation.
Sorry, was that subsection B?
Oh, yes, sir. It was B.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I apologize.